Ladies and gentlemen, messieurs et mesdames, je veux que vous me joignent en accueillant quelqu'un qui est en train, en fait, de réaliser la mission de cette conférence, l'honorable ministre Marie-Claude Bibeau.
Bonjour, là j'ai un petit doute. Est-ce que vous croyez qu'on peut pousser l'ordinateur pour que je puisse mettre mes feuilles? Est-ce que ça va? Merci. Bonjour à tous. Alors, c'est vraiment un plaisir pour moi d'être avec vous cet après-midi. Thank you for that kind introduction. And thank you to McGill University for inviting me to speak about this important and timely topic. It is an honor to be here among so many accomplished women policymakers, researchers, academics. Giving the conference theme, it's important for the students here to see women in leadership positions in a variety of fields and of sectors. I just came back from New York 3 days ago, where I took part in the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. I met so many committed and passionate gender equality advocates from literally everywhere, every continent. It was incredible to see how far women have come to claim their rights at home, at work, and in public spaces. It was also a sobering reminder of how much further we still have to go. For as long as I can remember, and even before, gender equality was always something that was coming. It was coming in the 60s, during the second wave of the feminist movement. It was coming in the 70s, and again in the 80s, the 90s, and in the year 2000. Fast forward to 2018, and gender equality still eludes many women in the West, let alone those in less developed countries and fragile states. What I find most troubling is that we have started going backwards for the first time in decades. The World Economic Forum's latest Global Gender Gap Report, which covers 144 countries, shows that things actually got worse for gender equality in 2017. So, why are gender inequalities so persistent? And why is it so difficult to move the needle on women's empowerment? Let me provide some context. In the last 30 years, the world experienced a phenomenal drop in the percentage of people living in extreme poverty, from 35% to 11%. Despite this progress, approximately 700 million people still live on 190 cents a day, 1/3 of them in sub-Saharan Africa. At the same time, we've seen a dramatic spike in conflicts and climate-related disasters. In 2016, there were 65 million displaced persons in the world. That is the worst record in history. This confluence of events has made people living below the poverty line increasingly difficult to reach. Women and girls, who are the most economically and socially marginalized, continue to be left furthest behind. There are a couple of reasons for this. More than 150 countries still have laws that discriminate against women. Every year, 12 million girls are married before the age of 18. More than 200 million girls and women alive today have been subjected to female genital mutilation. 214 million women don't have access to the contraception of their choice. And every year, more than 25 million women and adults and girls undergo a dangerous abortion. Every 9 minutes, one of them dies. And all around the world, including in Canada, 1 in 3 women will suffer from some form of physical, sexual, or gender-based violence in a lifetime. The Me Too and Time's Up movements have been very effective in bringing these issues to light. But we are still missing the voices of the poorest and more marginalized women. And yet, data suggests that women are far from being victims. They are, first and foremost, powerful agents of change, development, and peace. According to the McKinsey Global Institute, with positive intervention and sound public policy, women could add $12 trillion to the global economy by 2025. When women could also reduce chronic global hunger if they had the same access as men to education, property, and financial resources. Between the 1970s and the mid-1990s, over half of the progress in alleviating chronic hunger in developing countries was attributed to improving women's life conditions. Women are also effective peace brokers. When they are involved in negotiating and implementing peace accords, the chance of peace lasting at least 15 years goes up by 35%. Finally, if every society increased the number of educated women and girls, they could reduce poverty, and because every additional year of high school education increases a girl's future income by 10 to 20%. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you this context to highlight the fact that Canada's feminist international assistance policy was not created in a vacuum. It is grounded in evidence that empowering women and girls is the most effective way to address the root causes of poverty and inequality. It is based on a year of consultations involving more than 15,000 people in over 65 countries, including many youth and partners in the room. It is informed by your feedback that human dignity, gender equality, and building local capacity must be at the center of Canada's development and humanitarian actions. It is also centered around Canada's commitment to the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, and the understanding that SDG 5 is key to achieving the Agenda 2030. Empowerment, you told us, is multidimensional, and so must be our approach. We listened. That is why our policy has 6 areas of action. 1 targets gender equality specifically, while the other 5 mainstream gender. Our goal is to ensure that 15% of our funding supports gender transformative projects that directly target women's empowerment and gender equality. This is a big change from before, when only 3% of our funding supported projects that directly targeted gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls, and when roughly 30% of our projects gave no consideration to gender equality at all. Our job now, as the Government of Canada, is to provide the means and tools to deliver on this policy. In the latest federal budget, the Government of Canada announced a $2 billion increase to the international assistance envelope over 5 years. In addition to this amount, we will also allocate $1.5 billion over 5 years to support innovative approaches to international development. With these new investments, our policy has the political and financial backing to make a real impact. Let me give you some examples of changes that are already underway, starting with our increased support for sexual and reproductive health. The Government of Canada is committed to a 3-year investment to help improve women's access to comprehensive sexual education, contraception, family planning, safe and legal abortions, and post-abortion care. This funding will also support organizations that are helping to prevent gender-based violence and harmful practices such as child early and forced marriage and female genital mutilation. For example, in Mozambique, where nearly half of all girls are married and mothers before the age of 19, Canada is supporting efforts to promote and protect a girl's right to choose if, when, and whom she wants to marry, and if and when to have children. Our projects focus on high-need regions and include everything from improving access to the full range of family planning services to reintegrating adolescent mothers into schools. We are doing this because we firmly believe in upholding the rights of women and girls to control their bodies and make their own decisions. The second change underway is to work more closely with women's organizations. Women have been fighting for their rights for decades. They have built organizations and networks while creating change. Local women's organizations know their realities and are well positioned to challenge the issues their communities face. So, we are going to the grassroots level, directly to the women themselves. Through Canada's new Women's Voice and Leadership Program, we are investing in women's civil society organizations and movements that promote gender equality and advance the rights of women and girls. When I was in Haiti last month, I was pleased to announce funding for up to 30 local women's groups there. The women leading these organizations, not just in Haiti, but all over the world, are challenging the status quo, holding their governments accountable, and propelling systematic change. In some cases, these women are putting themselves in danger by speaking out. What we can do as donors is support these endeavors and ensure women have the platforms, tools, and protection they need to make their voices heard. Listening, amplifying, and facilitating, that is our job. Of course, gender equality cannot be achieved by women and girls working in isolation. Men and boys, and entire families and communities must be engaged too, or the rigid roles and norms that lead to inequality will not change. Engaging youth is just as important. Young people represent an incredible potential for leadership, innovation, and social and economic progress. We must work alongside them to overcome the obstacles to their future. That is why the Prime Minister Trudeau appointed himself as the Minister of Youth. He wants to ensure that young Canadians, particularly Indigenous youth, has a voice on all issues of national and global importance. The third change underway is to make Canada's humanitarian assistance more gender responsive. When I went to Bangladesh last November, I met with Rohingya refugees living in camps on the Myanmar border. The women I spoke to told me about the horrors they had experienced, the violence, the houses on fire, the long and dangerous trek to the border. They were exhausted and traumatized, and many had been sexually assaulted. It was painfully clear that these women and girls needed sexual and reproductive health services and psychosocial support, in addition to water, food, and shelter. And yet, the specific needs of women and girls are often overlooked and underfunded in humanitarian crises. That is why I ensured that Canada's response to those affected by the crisis includes support for sexual and reproductive health and rights and psychosocial counseling. Our funding has helped more than 56,000 women receive antenatal care, and more than 188,000 women and girls have received information and services on gender-based violence. The fourth change we are making is in the area of innovative financing. You've all heard the estimates. In developing countries, the annual finance gap to achieve the SDGs by 2030 is $2.5 trillion US dollars. Government contributions won't be enough. We must step up efforts to encourage private capital investments, including from businesses, pension funds, and private philanthropists. With the $1.5 billion announced in the latest federal budget, our government will continue exploring new partnerships and sources of developing financing for the SDGs. We are already helping to finance women's entrepreneurship in developing countries through our funding support for WeFi, a blended finance institution that uses government funding to attract investments from other sectors. Canada's Development Finance Institute, known officially as FinDev Canada, will operate on the same principle. Through a blend of public and private capital, FinDev will help to establish and grow businesses that will have the greatest impact on sustainable development, including women empowerment. So, those are some of the means and tools the Government of Canada is using to deliver on its feminist international assistance policy. But we can all do more to achieve gender equality and to ensure that our national and international institutions can deliver on the SDGs, specifically SDG 5. There's where you, the policymakers, researchers, and students can play a pivotal role. Data is essential. Yet, too many studies on reducing poverty remain gender blind. Poverty isn't simply about living on less than $1.90 a day. For far too many women and girls, poverty is also a lack of choice and opportunity. It is the denial of their agency and autonomy. It is unequal access to everything from credit to contraception, to nutrition and skills development. It is a lack of capacity to overcome and adapt to climate change. It is inadequate responses to the specific needs of women and girls in humanitarian crisis. Our government is committed to bridging these gaps by supporting new research and collaborating more closely with RDRC, the International Development Research Center, Canadian and universities, and other research institutions. We are doing this because your input will help to inform the design and delivery of Canada's international assistance. McGill's Grow Research Series, which is funded by IDRC, is a great example of some of the practical policy and programming insights we are looking for. Another area we want to improve in results tracking. Another area we want to improve is results tracking. Our government is currently defining results and specific indicators for our international assistance that will allow us to measure progress. This new results framework, well aligned with the SDGs indicators, will ensure that Canada's investment in development and humanitarian assistance meet the objective of our 6 action areas. Stay tuned for details because we are asking our partners to apply and adopt a similar approach. History had taught us that the path to gender equality and women's empowerment is not a straight line. It zigzags, and it's a lot of turbulence along the way. Canada is but one of many donors. But thanks to the help of our partners, we have a comprehensive vision to eradicate global poverty through feminist lens. In the coming months and years, our government will use every opportunity to advocate for gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls. We will capitalize on Canada's G7 leadership this year and as host of the Women Deliver Conference next year, to convene and mobilize new partners. We will continue to raise critical women's issues, like sexual and reproductive health and rights, with our counterparts. I invite you to keep up the advocacy too, as challenging as it can be sometimes. We will do these things because women shouldn't have to fight and wait another 216 years to get equal pay and employment opportunities. Because the time for women and girls is now. No more delay. And because we cannot achieve the Sustainable Development Goals if we leave half of the population behind. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Minister Bibeau, for a very wonderful and motivating speech. So we'd like to turn the attention now to the audience and allow for some questions and answers. Avril is in the room with the microphone, and she's going to take, perhaps, maybe if you can just raise your hand, we'll take 3 questions at a time. So maybe first question.
Bonjour, Madame la Ministre. You mentioned the importance of data in order to orient policy decisions. I know that towards the end of 2017, there were a few GEC initiatives to work alongside ministries and aid-receiving countries to empower them in doing their own studies with gender and feminist lens. And I was wondering, one example was Burkina Faso, and I had the privilege to support the ministry there. So I was wondering if there will be in the future more initiatives like this to empower researchers in aid-receiving countries so they can also adopt a gender lens in their research. Thank you.
Okay, take 2 more. Avril?
Oh.
Yeah, no, so thank you for giving me the opportunity. You talked about the challenges in 2017 and the issue of the conflicts and how it has affected women. So the question would be, what is the interventions that you envisage related to women's role in peace building and in conflicts? Because this is a very important problem as we are seeing a lot of conflicts erupting here and there. Thank you very much.
Third question.
Thank you, Madame la Ministre. It's a great pleasure, and thank you. This is sort of a comment and a question. The question and the comment in itself is, how will you evaluate the policy, the feminist policy? Because it seems to me that a lot of what the policy will do in terms of outcomes are going to be indirect outcomes. Mm-hmm. Since, you will influence people around the world and governments around the world. And, I would like to see that the evaluation of the policy picks up these outcomes.
Thank you very much. Do not hesitate to ask your questions in French. Give me a break. Yes, we want to do more work with researchers, and actually we have also we are also in the process of developing a new program for more innovation, and it falls also under that. So it's in development, but we want effectively to give more opportunities to academics and researchers to support the policy, because we really want, as we said, and as a whole government as well, we want to make decisions based on facts. So we will definitely need you for that. And I will link it to the third question. In terms of results as well, in terms of, we will need you to help us yes, develop indicators, but to help measuring the results. Actually, right now we are working on a result framework, which is inspired by we have to and we want to align with the SDG 169 indicators. So we're trying to merge the two and our policy, our feminist policy, and find what, how we can align it with the SDGs, obviously, but the indicators as well. So this is where we will find concrete indicators, so how to measure not only the outcome and the output, c'est ça en anglais? But I want to say as well that in terms of results, when we were going through the consultation before the policy, our partners asked us for three things. They asked us for a good policy, and I think they are happy with, and I hope you are, with the feminist policy. They were asking us for leadership and money, of course. But as you said, I think the impact Canada can have in terms of advocacy and being a global convener and provoking discussions and action, concrete action on women empowerment and gender equality is also, I think we can make a difference. And this is why we always say, or we always hear, Canada is back, but I can tell you that it's much more than a slogan. This is really what I feel when I travel. And Canada, people want to have a Canadian around the table because we are recognized for being innovative, finding new solutions, and finding compromise. So really, I think we can have a leadership. Right now, everybody wants us around the table, so we have this great opportunity to really have this discussion and lead the way and have others to follow and to move better and faster on women empowerment. Talking about conflict and the place women can have on peace processes and peace negotiation. Yes, and once again, we do have the data that confirm that it's relevant and it's important to have women around a peace process negotiation table. And so through the Voice and Leadership initiative that I talked to, so we want to work with the grassroots organizations, so build their capacities for them to be able, to have this, to access these negotiation table and have the capacity and the expertise to do so. This is also one track that we want to support the capacity of women. We also work with all the local governments in terms of good governance and technical assistance to help them develop inclusive policies, to show them the value of taking into consideration the needs of vulnerable groups, but starting with women and other disabled, indigenous, LGBT, or whatever the situation is, and what we want to focus on. So we're trying to work with the grassroots and the local government to change and to get them, connect somehow to have women more involved in the situation. And we also have the Women, Peace and Security, where we want to have more women present in the police and peacekeeping forces, because we know that their presence also contribute to diminish the gender-based violence, among other good things that they bring with them.
I think we have time for a few more questions.
Minister, I'd like to thank you for making it so much easier.
Okay, sorry.
For making it so much easier to work on the issues of the economic empowerment of women since your Liberal government has come into power. My life is so much easier. I might still be blonde if you'd done this a bit earlier. So in that framework, I mean, you also just brought forward probably the most progressive gender budget in the OECD just a few weeks ago. So, just more of making it all possible. Would you comment then, given all the traveling that you've done and all the officials that you've met and your involvement in the UN, would you address sort of the question of capacity. What is the capacity in Canada and other places in terms of actually supporting this very progressive policy? And what are you seeing in terms of maybe where some of the best practices are in terms of ratcheting up the capacity of policymakers to support these very progressive policies in terms of actually bringing about the kinds of outcomes that you're targeting?
I think I will ask you to continue a little. I'm just
Bon, tu
just
sais,
not
pour
sure.
moi, c'est vraiment une question de capacité. Parce que, bon, maintenant, on a l'encadrement le plus progressif au monde, franchement. Ah, si c'est une question de budget, si c'est une question de développement international, on a un encadrement vraiment spectaculaire. Alors moi, j'aimerais savoir un petit peu, avec tous les voyages que vous avez faits cette année, et tous les officiels, des gens de gouvernement, tout ça que vous avez rencontrés, comment vous voyez ça? Parce qu'on doit développer une capacité et faire croître une capacité énorme rapidement. Alors, est-ce que vous avez vu des bonnes pratiques? Est-ce que vous avez vraiment... Parlez-nous de votre expérience, de cette capacité, comment on va livrer. Parce que maintenant qu'on a cet encadrement, comment on va augmenter la capacité pour le livrer?
Merci.
Hein? Excusez-moi les fautes de grammaire. Hein, alors ça...
Merci. Mon anglais n'est pas parfait non plus. Hein?
Hi, thank you very much, Mrs. Bibeau. It was very interesting. Je vais avoir une question concernant le financement, mais au moins je vais la faire en français, comme ça. En fait, je me demandais, mais c'est en lien avec la question de madame, donc en termes de financement ou de projet pour favoriser le capacity building au Canada, donc au-delà de s'appuyer ou de se baser sur les networks et les organisations locales dans les pays où on va, je me demandais qu'est-ce qui allait être investi en termes de, pas seulement d'engager des gender consultants, mais aussi engager des gender experts. Et dans votre ministère et dans les ONG, je sais qu'il y a un criant manque de financement pour, je connais plus la COSI, mais pour les différentes ONG là, au Canada, en termes de favoriser notre expertise sur le genre et pas seulement former tout le monde là, sur la surface, sur les questions de genre, mais avoir des experts vraiment qui peuvent favoriser notre expertise canadienne.
Merci.
Je pense qu'on va arrêter avec cette question-là.
Okay, and I think I'm gonna kind of link the two. Going from the policy to implementing it and building the capacity. Well, Canada has been recognized as a leader in terms of gender equality for decades. But what is new, actually? We used to do gender-based analysis, and I was at CEDA in 1990 as a co-op student, and we were doing, and it was new at that time, impact on women. And now what we are asking our partners, because I tell you, gender-based analysis is not good enough for me anymore, okay? What we're asking our partners is that they make their demonstration that they consult women locally from the beginning, that local women are part of the decision making, and that women are really being empowered throughout the project, not considered as beneficiaries, but really as a powerful agent of change, development, and peace. This is really what we are asking our partners. And in the beginning, I was always given the example of vaccination, that there was no way to have a women empowerment component in a vaccination project. And actually I said, no, obviously we will vaccinate boys and girls. But the way we do it, the way we train women health workers, the way they can talk about newborn health, but family planning, why not, as well, while they are, meeting other women. The way we gather gender disaggregated data are ways that vaccination projects can have a bigger impact in terms of women empowerment. And building this capacity as well, making all Canadian development workers experts in gender That might be a bit ambitious, but still. We have launched another initiatives for Canadian small and medium organizations. It's $100 million over 5 years for small and medium Canadian organizations to do international projects. And one part of this financing is dedicated to building the capacities of our Canadian organizations. So this is, I think, address directly your question. And this initiative is really a result of the consultation because we were being told that for a couple of years it was very difficult for the small and medium organization to access financing from the department. So this is why I put aside a specific budget and an initiative for that, including one part for building local Canadian capacities. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for being here. On behalf of the Institute of McGill University, if I can also say on behalf of the students, thank you very much for being here and for taking on this more importantly than being here, but for taking on this very important dimension in the Canadian political landscape. So thank you so much for your leadership. Thank you for taking some time off from a very busy schedule to be here. So merci beaucoup. Okay. Thank you.